government on Wednesday banned 118 Chinese apps. Some of the biggest apps are from the stable of Tencent, Baidu, and of course, the most popular gaming app Pubg. Pubg interestingly has the largest user base in India. I'm Surabhi Agarwal from the Economic Times, and in today's video, we are going to discuss what are the reasons behind this ban and what is the recourse that companies have going forward from here. If you remember, in June this year, the government had started with banning 59 apps, which had included ByteDance, TikTok, as well as Helo. It also included shopping app ClubFactory and popular apps like Sharelt and Alibaba's UC browser. That was the first instance when the Indian government had first started banning Chinese apps. Now, of course, the reasons that were given were that these apps pose a security threat to the country's sovereignty and integrity. There have been reports and complaints that some of these apps were misusing the user data and stealing them and sending it to servers which are outside the country. The Indian government, in its response, both during the last ban as well as in the current ban, has said that there have been complaints to the parliamentarians, as well as there have been threat reports by the Indian Cert as well as the National Cybersecurity Coordination Center, on which the Ministry of Electronics and IT has now acted upon. So in the first instance, 59 of these apps were banned, and then soon after, the government had followed it up with banning 47 apps. Now, these 47 apps, some of them were clones of the existing apps which were banned, while 15 of them were new apps. These included the browser app from Xiaomi and others. In the latest ban, which is of course the largest of the previous two bans, 118 apps have been banned, and the common thread which connects all of them is that they are all Chinese. Of course, the data threat is the main reason behind this ban, and the government is kind of arguing that some of these apps may be misusing user data, and that is what has led to this ban. After this ban, the government had within 48 hours set up a committee which comprised of representatives from the Ministry of Electronics and IT, Law, as well as Home Affairs to look into this issue. This committee had then later sent a detailed questionnaire of almost 70 to 80 questions to all of these companies, asking them key questions on what is their ownership like, what is the data practices that they follow, how are they sharing this data, etc., and had given them almost 2-3 weeks time to respond. The future course of action in this is that the committee is now looking at those detailed responses and going to come up with either a follow-up, sort of questionnaire or a meeting with those executives, or some kind of a decision on what happens in the future on this ban. What we have to keep in mind is that this is only an interim ban; it's not a final ban. But what is interesting and what we have to watch out for is that now, what is that the government will do after its first round of sort of discussions with the companies that were banned in the first round? Will it send another set of questionnaires to these 118 companies, or will it call them for a discussion? That's something that we have to watch out for. Another interesting point is that this ban has come within 2 days or 3 days of another border skirmish, with China. So the timing of this ban is very, very key. Some of the key concerns that have been raised about these apps, and if you look at the list of the apps which have been banned, then they are very, very popular, either gaming apps or dating apps or apps which are used in everyday life. For example, things like social media apps, TikTok, etc., and also things like document scanners and Shareit and things like that. Now, these apps take a lot of permissions from the users. Now, one would believe that users don't really pay attention to what are they signing up for. But it's also important to note that when we are signing up for these apps, we end up giving a lot of permissions. For example, access to the camera, access to our media gallery, access to making calls and things like that. And probably the concerns that the government has that some bit of this is possibly being misused. When you're using an app, you end up giving your location history. You end up, you sign up using a mobile number. So we can assume that all that information is already available with the app. Just to give you an example, some of the apps which have been banned are very, very popular social media apps. And also the trend which is catching up these days is of popular, short video apps. Now, if people are creating short video using their apps, then they're giving up their facial recognition, facial characteristics to the apps. And if an app has say over 100 million or 200 million users, then that app has a database of so many Indians, and plus their location history, plus possibly their phone numbers. This could be possibly used for a lot of profiling or creating a database. And if somebody has to actually misuse it, then it could be a big security threat for the country. So if I were to just go through across all the three bans and list out which are the biggest companies which are impacted because of this decision, are of course Tencent, Baidu, and ByteDance. So the most popular app from the ByteDance stable, TikTok, was banned in the first round. And interestingly, the US government has also indicated that they are going to ban TikTok after September 20. And interestingly, they have quoted from the Indian ban order to justify their own sort of decision by saying that in the Indian government has said that the apps like TikTok pose a security threat to the sovereignty and integrity of the country. So ByteDance has been significantly impacted by this ban, because TikTok was a very popular app in India. It had over 200 million users. Then other apps from their stable like Helo, and there was another app which was there in the 47 ban round. Another company which is impacted in a big way is of course Tencent, because many of Tencent's apps have been banned. Alibaba's UC browser has been impacted, which was again very popular in the country. Then there is another big Chinese company called Meitu. Many of their apps have been banned. And similarly, there are lots of these small Chinese apps which might not be sort of household names, but have a huge user base in the country. And this has led to Chinese companies being very concerned about what has happened. In fact, many lawyers that I spoke to yesterday and today are saying that soon after the ban orders came, they got calls from their clients who were absolutely stunned and shocked by this order, and they're not very and they don't have clarity on what lies ahead. So now what happens forward in this case? We've already seen 3 rounds of ban when it comes to Chinese apps. And as ET had reported just a month ago, there is a list of 245 companies which the government had made, which were possibly having a security threat to the country's information. Will we have more rounds of similar bans, or will this end here? Another interesting thing to watch out for is that what happens next. Like I said, possibly the Indian government could start another round of interrogations where the companies which have been impacted in the latest 118 round ban will be asked to share more details about their data sharing practices, about their ownership, etc. And the government will again review their data practices. Or we can also look forward to another, probably some clarity on what happens to the companies which were banned in the first round. Meanwhile, what happens to TikTok is very interesting, because the acquisition talks are gaining a lot of ground, and everybody is waiting with bated breath to look forward to what happens to TikTok in the US as well as in India. Keep watching this space for more.